Getting ready to head over to the live for the MSPC main event, 1100, but gotta check my tire pressure. I have a leak in one of them and the temperature's been changing, so gotta do that quick, get out of here. Let's go. Alright guys, welcome back to the vlog, and just a reminder that we are going to be suspending the live poker content with coronavirus going on. This is probably going to be the last video, maybe the last of two more that will be live poker focused, but we are going to be focusing on online poker a bit. I'm planning to do some streams, maybe do some online hand history reviews, stuff like that. And if you're interested in playing online poker for real money with us, join Discord. Info's down in the description below, and you can see all the details about that. Or you can just go ahead and join at colorup.poker with registration code Matt, all lowercase. But getting into this video, this is a bit of an old one as well. Hard to really put a lot of stuff out there that's not old. This is actually a video I wasn't planning to make. Maybe it was just I didn't want to emotionally deal with it, but this was the MSPC $1,100 main event from a little while back. This is always a pretty cool event, $1,100. A lot of times that's kind of the first step up once you get above like 500, but a lot of times the fields are still pretty soft, and when they have the good guarantees, yeah, you're still gonna see some pretty soft fields. So always a favorite of mine. Don't like to miss it, and this time was no different. Getting into some of these hands right away, we had I think 30k starting stack, and this hand's very early on. I probably registered in maybe like the second level, and so 30k in the stack here, 3 limps to me, and I'm in the small blind with king jack of hearts. I bump it up to 1.1k. However, that doesn't get the job done. The big blind, early position, and the cutoff all call. So we go multi-way to Jack 10, 3 rainbows. Top pair for us here. I bet 2k, and early position is the only caller. Turn is the queen of hearts, second heart on board, and I don't think we really need to bet now. Not going to get a whole lot of value. So I go ahead and check, and checks through. River is a 10. It's a little bit hard to get value from worse now. I think a lot of his continuing range would be 10x and a couple worse jacks. So I go ahead and check it here. He can also have some queen x holdings as well, which I didn't mention, but it turns out he does. He has ace queen, lose that one, and have to move on to the next hand. In this next hand, we've got 22k at the 100, 200, 200 level. Under the gun makes it 700, and there are 3 calls from middle position, the hijack, and the small blind. I'm in the big blind with ace 10 of spades, and I think there's definitely an option here to be made for kind of a 3-betting squeezing here, but I think when under the gun's the razor, we probably just prefer to call. So that's what I do, and the flop comes ace 7-4. I check, under the gun bets 800, which is pretty small. Makes sense on this board, but when we're so multi-way, it's definitely a small size. Middle position makes a call, and I make a call as well. Don't think there's really any other option. Turn is the 3 of spades, so 2 spades on board now. Checks around. The river is the queen of spades, so we get to backdoor a kind of weird flush where no bets went in on the turn when the flush draw was actually present. So I go ahead and make a bet of 4k, trying to target just any old ace, a couple weird 2 pairs, and then maybe some flushes. Under the gun folds, but middle position obliges us with a raise to 10k. I shove for about 20k, and he snap calls the 7-6 of spades. Pretty lucky run out there. Had to be that exact configuration, that exact set of hands, and that exact run out to really get the money in there. So obviously very, very fortunate. In the very next hand, I have 45k and the cutoff opens to 700. I'm in the small blind with the same hand, ace 10 of spades, literally the same hand. I had to check it a couple times there. I make the call and the big blind calls as well. So we go multi-way to this flop, which is extremely favorable for us. It is king, queen, jack with 2 spades. So you can't really manufacture a better flop than that. We end up obviously checking, the big blind checks, and the cutoff bets 1k. And when it comes around to us again, I think that, we could definitely argue for just calling. Our hand is super strong and pretty hard to counterfeit. However, I think that this player is going to be pretty strong when he c-bets this board, and I'd rather just shovel as much money in now as possible when the board can really kill a lot of action on turns and rivers. So I make it 3.5k. He pretty quickly makes it 11k, and I just shove for his roughly 20k total. He shows us pocket kings, so definitely not out of the woods yet. In pretty good shape though. Turn changes things. We are not in such good shape now. The queen of clubs gives him a full house. We've technically got an out in the, would that be the jack of spades, I believe. We have an out to improve to the royal, a hand I have never made before this moment in my poker career, and a hand that after this hand I have still not made in my poker career. So we don't make the royal. The river gives us an irrelevant flush with a 3 of spades. And we have to tuck our tail between our legs there. We get ace 10 of spades, massive hands both times, but one goes down in flames. So next hand is not for another level or so. We're knocked basically back down to where we were. So c'est la vie, I guess. But 200, 300, 300 blinds, 24k in the stack. Under the gun opens up to 800, and the cutoff, who's the guy from the previous hand, and the button both call. I'm in the small blind with pocket kings, and I bump it up to 3.2k. The cutoff's the only caller, and again, this is the villain from the previous hand. The flop comes ace, king, deuce, and I decide to go for a c-bet, but definitely don't need to go large here. I make it 2k. He actually raises us to 5.5k, which is a little surprising. Hard to think about like what kinds of hands he could actually have for value here. However, he has a lot of logical bluffs, so I kind of prefer, after the fact, 3-betting to a size where he may be able to give us a little more action with those draws, but I decided to just call in the moment. The turn's a 10 of hearts. For a lot of the same reasons that I kind of like 3-betting the flop, I kind of don't mind exploitatively leading the turn, but it's obviously very face-up if we were to do that. I don't do that in the moment. I just check, and he checks it back. River's an ace of hearts, which might look a little scary on the surface, like he can technically have some hands that beat us, ace deuce, ace 10, ace king, but I think in practice it's very unlikely he holds any of those, so I'm feeling pretty good about my boat once again here. We decide to bet 7.5k, targeting an ace that he just kind of makes a weird flop raise with, but unfortunately he tank folds, so seems more likely he just had a flush draw that maybe, backs into a pair of tens. Maybe he has a weirdly played king, but hard for that to be true when we block everything. In any case, we go on to the next hand with a little bit of a healthier stack than we had prior, so that's always good to see. This time we're at a pretty wild table. Anybody who plays at Maryland Live and plays tournaments will know a lot of these guys. Joe C. We've got Richie. I've got a few other regulars there whose names I don't necessarily know or remember. I'm much better with faces than names, so my apologies. But this was a wild table. This is the kind of table where you just know that a lot of action's going to go down. So with that in mind, this very first hand, we've got 33k in the stack. We see Joe limp from middle position, an unknown player limp from the cutoff, and then Richie on the button also limps. I'm in the small blind with ace-jack suited. I think offsuit I would consider just calling and trying to play the hand awkwardly multi-way, but it's not really fun suited or offsuit, to be honest. I bump it up to 2.5k, hoping to get a little isolation, but we get the opposite. First of all, Joe calls. The cutoff now back raise jams 20k, and Richie, who's pretty much on mega tilt at this point, reshoves for about 35k, which covers me. Now, In most circumstances, this just wouldn't even be a call, but Richie being in the hand, Joe being the one who just called, he's not the one who, limp re-raise. He didn't limp re-raise, right? Nobody open limp re-raise. The guy who's back raising was a caller. He was an over limper, basically, not the original limper. So you wouldn't really expect him to be super strong. I kind of ranged him on something like small to medium pairs. Some ace-x, like I do expect he might over limp and then back raise jam ace queen or something, but I just didn't think there were enough of those hands. Plus, Richie can be in there with like anything. And I think that we are doing too well against him and are significantly deeper with him than the other player that we just have to get it in here. So I sort of just call it off here, and Joe folds. The cutoff, unfortunately, has ace-king, and Richie on the button has 10-8 of clubs, so obviously in great shape against him. And we flop ourselves to be in even better shape than we would have been against both of them with the jack-high board. Just get a hammerlock on the hand right away. Turns a brick, river's another brick, and we find ourselves basically almost tripling up here. So obviously no complaints. Super lucky when they turn over those hands, but I also think in the first place we were sort of a little unlucky at the hand that the cutoff had, or middle position, whatever he was. So kind of a weird one, definitely super influenced by the table dynamics and just the player tendencies, but I could definitely be convinced one way or the other. I didn't feel great about it in the moment, so it's nice to take what I think is a pretty thin spot at best and get there. So on to the next hand, we see that Joe limps in middle position. I'm now up to 80k, by the way, no big deal. I'm in the small line with pocket sevens, and rather than trying to isolate, since I know we're likely to go heads up or three-way anyway, I just choose to overlimp because the only thing else that can really happen is the big blind raises behind. The big blind just checks, so we can go three ways to a flop that is ace 10 7. So pretty good one for us. It's rainbow. I check. The big blind actually leads for 1.1k, and Joe calls, which I remember thinking in the moment was a little surprising. I was thinking to myself, like, I wonder if he ever like slow plays something massive here when he just limps in pre. Because it's Joe, he's aggro. I definitely feel like he's capable of having the limp re-raise with some strong hands, and when nobody gives him the opportunity, he just goes to the flop. But we have a set, so I decide to stick with, the general overall plan, which is this set is super strong and it's hard to be beat here. I check raise to 3.1k, and the big blind calls. Joe now jams for 15k, which is definitely setting off some alarm bells. I immediately sort of am worried about aces, a little worried about tens, and it's hard to put a ton of hands in his range that we beat, although ace 10 and ace 7, he could certainly play this way too. So I end up reshoving for 30k effective versus the big blind, who just folds, and Joe snaps, perhaps unsurprisingly, with pocket aces. So, it's always a little bit rough when hands go down this exact way. You kind of figure, like, if I raise pre-flop, he might limp re-raise, we might just get away. But at these stack depths, it's entirely possible that I'm just supposed to stack off with that hand type anyway. Either way, kind of frustrating. We just kind of have to wait for our fate here on the turn in the river. But the turn is kind of interesting because it gives us quads. Yeah, we got quads. So it's fun to hit quads on the turn. The river does not reciprocate for Joe. Unfortunately for him, he does not improve to a better quads. It's a brick, and we chip up once again. Not as huge of a debacle so far as like the chip counts go relative to the previous hand where we basically stacked two players. But, no complaints there. Chip up once again, and now I've got 95k at 400, 800, 800. We open up aces in early position to 2k, and the cutoff makes it 8k. Always a nice sight to see when we've got the aces. I just go ahead, don't wait, bump it up to 22k, and he jams. We're very close in chips, so obviously I happily snap it off, but unfortunately he's just got the other set of aces. So aces against aces, obviously we're just kind of looking for a chop here. No, we don't want to anger the poker gods by asking for a win here, so I pray for the chop, and that's what we get. We get a full board of bricks, no sweats, nothing interesting. and we get to move on with our lives, and yeah, keep going on from there. We do manage to chip up here and there. It's a couple blind levels later before we play an interesting hand, but we have chipped up to 135k at 600, 1200, 1200 blinds. Open in the cutoff with ace deuce offsuit, and we make it 2.5k. Big blind is the only caller, and the flop comes queen jack 8 two-tone. He checks, and when we have the ace of hearts here, I think it's a pretty clear c-bet. Some other types of iterations of this hand, we could probably just check and fold later streets. But we bet 4k here, and he makes the call. Turn is the jack of diamonds, and he checks once again. I think this is a pretty good card to shut down on. He's going to have a jack a pretty decent amount of the time. The hands that aren't a jack probably won't fold, besides maybe just 8x, and even some of those probably won't fold, like 8-9, 10-8 suited type hands. So I check it back, and we actually improve on the river. The river is the ace of diamonds, and he checks once again. So when he checks again, it's pretty hard for us to really be behind, I would say. For the most part, we're just going to have improved to the best hand here. He'll have a queen a lot. He'll have like an 8 or a random pocket pair a lot. So I think we should just go for a bet, but I think we should go small. I think I make a pretty big mistake here by betting 10k. I think really something more like 5 to 7k is right, although, it's like hard to say, does he really fold a queen to 10k? Turns out he doesn't have a queen. He snaps with a jack for offsuit, and he gets to take this one down, and obviously I feel even more foolish for betting so large. So much for chipping up. Now at the 1k, 1500 level, we've got 95k in the stack, so still quite healthy. I'm in the cutoff with ace 8 offsuit, and I make it 3.5k. The button jams for 26k, and it folds around to me. A lot of times this could be pretty close to a fold. Offsuit, I think suited it would be a call. But I think that against this particular player, I just had a bit of a read that he was rejamming wide. So I make the call, and he does in fact have a pretty reasonable shoving hand here, but one that a lot of live players probably wouldn't go with, queen 9 of clubs. The board runs out queen 10-8 with 2 spades. Jack of clubs keeps some hopes alive for chopportunities as well as wins, and the river king of clubs seals the deal for us, actually. It was kind of a hard board to read in the moment. Came out real fast, and it's like, oh, he's got a straight. But so do I. So that wrapped up the day one shenanigans. Bagged a pretty decent stack, probably somewhere between 120 and 130k, which is good for something like 60 some big blinds on day 2. My track record in day 2s at Maryland Live has not been great. It's been sort of all over the map, and actually mostly it's not been all over the map. Mostly I just bust in the first hour and a half, like pretty much to the T, but I was confident. I felt good going in. I had a good chip stack, and was reasonably close to the money coming back. So coming back to that day 2, it did not disappoint. Had a pretty decent table draw at the 1.5k, 2.5k, 2.5k level. I had 120k when this hand happened. I had ace queen of hearts in early position and bumped it up to 5k. Middle position jam for 65k, and it folded around to me. This is just one of those spots in tournaments. You just can't really go folding these ace queen suited. You could maybe argue ace queen off in a live tournament that you could get rid of it, but not suited. So I call it off here, pretty straightforward. He has black pocket jacks, and the board runs out ace 3 deuce, king 7. So we just get to scoop that one right out the gate. I knew coming in the tables were going to turn. I was going to finally have a good day 2 at live. So coming into the next hand with 185k and feeling pretty good. Early position with 55k in his stack makes it 6.5k. And I've got aces in middle position, which a lot of times would be a 3-bet, but I think at these depths, it's pretty reasonable to flat at least some percentage of the time, trying to basically just trap someone behind me or, just stack off post flop. So that's what I do. I flat here, and a 60k stack in the hijack calls. The big blind with 75k makes it 50k. And early position tank folds. Now, it's a pretty interesting spot because of just the fact that he makes it 50k out of his stack, but he's basically jamming. There's no reason for us to not, jam behind, worried about him folding. He's pretty much always going to call off once he makes it this size. So no more decisions. I just shove. The hijack tank folds, and the big blind side calls off. with pocket eights. So in amazing shape here to probably have a run at the chip lead at this point. But the flop immediately comes queen 8-4. So not only does he have a set, but we just have no shot at backdoors. We have no chance to make a weird straight or like a flush or anything. We just really have to hit it. We have to hit an ace. The turn doesn't bring it. It's a 3 of diamonds. But the river also doesn't bring it. See, I got some of you with that one. I know I did. So yeah, that was a frustrating one, I think, because I played it in such a way that I felt maximized my EV there. I don't think if I just 3-bet pre-flop, we're really getting that level of action ever. But, you know, that's just the game, right? So knock back down a little bit below where we were, go into this next hand with 110K, and actually once again have aces. So under the gun with aces, I make it 5.5K. The big blind makes the call, and the flop comes 10-4-3 with 2 clubs. He checks it to us, and a lot of times I would c-bet this board, but with specifically aces and specifically the ace of clubs in hand, I will sometimes slow play this and just check flop, planning to call down turn and river or go for value myself on turn and river. So that's what I do this time. Again, not 100% of the time, but once in a while I'll do this. So I go ahead and check, and the turn is the 4 of diamonds. He bets 5K, and even though I love my hand obviously on the flop, is kind of a weird card because he will actually improve on it pretty non-zero, and I don't think we can go ahead and raise. I think we still kind of need to call, let his 10x value bet, let some other hands bluff, and just kind of play this a little bit slower. So I go ahead and call, and the river is the 10 of diamonds, and he bets 30K. So this is a really tough spot because the way we've played it, we're super duper under-repped. However, the way he's played it, he would play a 10 exactly like this, and he's defending out of the big blind pre, so he probably has a lot of 10x. And the fact that he can have so much 10x is part of why he's able and willing to bet this size. Now, against the live typical lineup, you might just be able to exploitatively fold here. I think that most players are incapable of bluffing at this size on this run out, but I actually knew this player. He's a well-studied player, and I give him credit for being able to do this with bluffs at this size. And again, we're super under-repped. Kind of sucks we block some of the best bluffs, but I just don't think it really matters that much. We just kind of have to go with it. So I end up calling, and unfortunately he does have the 10-3 of clubs. So ironically, he was actually already good on the flop, and we might have saved like kind of, not maybe like a lot of chips, but we probably saved some chips by checking back. Although that might not be true because his sizing is so good on the river. I'm trying to think about like my flop sizing would probably be like 7K, and then turn it might be like 15K. So like, yeah, maybe I just lost more. But moving on to the next hand, still alive, just not in such great shape. We've got 70K and the hijack open jams for 41K. I'm on the button with black pocket nines, and even though we're going to be beat a fair bit here, it's a very clear rejam against this size. So I go ahead and shove, folds around, and the guy has king 10 off. Unfortunately, the board immediately gives him everything that he needs. It is king 10-6 with 2 spades. So we've got a little bit of backdoor potential. We've got some possibilities of improving, but we do not improve on the turn nor the river. And unfortunately, we are cut way down once again. Chip up here and there. At the next blind level, though, we are getting quite short. 1.5K, 3K blinds, and 51K in the stack. So 17 bigs, can't really, complain. It's just the kind of tournament where that will happen sometimes, but definitely frustrating to come in so deep and already be fighting for our life with the hour and a half, mark coming up fast. The button in this hand opens to 8K. I defend in the big blind with 10-9 of hearts. Very clear call. We don't really need to shove this, although you could certainly argue for it. The flop comes out pretty interesting, I would say. It comes out ace, queen, 9 with 2 hearts. I check. I won't really be leading here ever, and he actually checks it back. This is the player from the previous aces hand where he had the 10-3, and I just kind of got the feeling that he had something showdownable, something maybe even pretty strong that he wanted to induce me to bet. I don't know. It's hard to explain sometimes. Like, I didn't have a real concrete reason I felt this way. I just kind of thought that was what was going on. So when the turn comes to 10 of spades and we just bink into one of the best hands we can hold, I thought that he might have like a weaker to a medium ace, maybe even a stronger ace. And I just thought that shoving looked super bluffy and he would never fold the showdown hands. So I shoved. And sure enough, he snapped with ace king off. Not out of the woods by any means, but we really want that call. We've got the flush draw too, so he's drawn pretty thin to the outs he can hit. The river is the king of spades though, and we're out. That's one of the ones that he could hit to improve. And yeah, basically on the hour and a half mark exactly, we bust. I'll let myself from the day of take it away from here. Yeah, that's the bad news. We're home, which means we're out. And man, I just hate complaining about run bad. I really do. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to listen to, I know, but it really just feels like virtually every time I play a day two at live, it goes something like this. Except for that one time that I final tabled the WPT deep stacks, but I think I busted like 8th in that. So haven't really had any redemption at live in a super long time. This one in particular hurt. It felt a lot like the WPT main. I think it was like 2018 September, where I came in with like all the chips and busted within like 2.5 hours. And today I even made a joke. I even made a joke that I always bust an hour and a half after the start of day two at live. And on the dot, an hour and a half in was when I busted. You know, I mean, like, what can you do, really? You know, it's like tournaments are, it's just what they are. It's what you sign up for, but it still sucks, man. I mean, if you look at the value of my stack at the point at which I busted, it's like an average chip stack is worth at least $5,000 there. An average chip stack in a good player's hands is worth significantly more. And an above average chip stack in, an above average player's hands worth more. So it sucks. It really sucks. I don't think I could have played much better. Could definitely argue about the second aces hand. You could argue about any of the hands, I suppose, but rough, really, really rough. Let me know what you guys thought about that one. Leave me a comment down below. It really helps out the channel. Like this video if you could find it in your heart to enjoy the masochism that was this tournament. Share this video with a friend. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And I think I'll be back to the cash games for a little bit here. But appreciate you guys watching. Better luck next time. Maybe. But maybe not. We can only hope.